I now call the Ripon City Council closed session to order. So Lisa, no, I don't call. Oh, the meeting. It's my last one. It's my last one. Oh, yeah. Just I gotta bang it into session, and then Lisa takes over from there. And then you get to deal with Daniel as your mayor, not me. All right, so we'll call the Ripon City Council.
That's only if I so choose.
Yeah. I can't even call this thing to session. Like this is.
Congratulations, Leo, and you got outnumbered by Daniel. He's a young guy. You old guys, you're way older than I am. Can I get away with that?
We're live.
Are we going to get this meeting started?
Hey, I'm trying.
Congratulations.
I now call the Ripon City Council meeting to order. So, Lisa, do we have any comments for the closed session?
We do not.
All right, with none, we will now move into closed session.
Mr. Mayor, if I may say, if we can turn our mics off for closed session, because we do have people in the lobby. The speakers are off out there, so they will not hear us, but then that will just allow us to be a little bit more quieter in here.
I now call the Ripon City Council meeting to order for November 10th. Mr. Terpster, would you like to read out?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and public. Council did meet tonight at 5 p.m. in closed session to receive an update on negotiations with our unions and represented employees, as well as to get a brief update on a potential project with sales tax issues. And so staff was given some direction to proceed and with those exploratory efforts. And we'll be bringing back a report at a later meeting.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Would you all please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and stay standing for the invocation? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in prayer. Lord, we take some time to pause and invite your presence here, that you would direct us. This is a place of power and authority, and with that responsibility, we want to get your wisdom, petition it to be a part of our discussion, a part of our listening. May we be people who listen tonight and deal through the complexities of what it is to be a society. Right now, we are in a time that feels divisive. Here are leaders before us who you have appointed. I pray that you give them the gifts and the abilities of unity and of peacemaking and of building bonds and relationships. We need to be a society that reflects that, Lord, and we do that by your help. We petition that. Thank you for hearing us. Thank you for being here. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. I know. Lisa, would you please do the roll call?
Councilmember Leo Zuber.
Here.
Mike Restuccia.
Present.
Dean Euchre.
Here.
Vice Mayor Daniel DeGraff.
Here.
Mayor Jake Parks.
Present. I will now open it up for public discussion. Now is the time to address the city council on anything not currently on the agenda. So if you have anything, please go ahead and step up to the podium and state your name and address. Seeing none, we will go ahead and close the public discussion section of the meeting.
And there are none through email either.
Thank you. So we will now move on to the approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion on the floor?
So move. Whoop. Yeah, so move.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Dean? It's not a touchscreen.
Not a touchscreen?
It's not a touchscreen. You got to use your mouse.
Use your mouse. This
I'm losing it.
Yeah, Dean, use that one right there.
Try that one.
You might have to use it on this thing. There we go. Perfect. All right, we will now move on to the approval of the agenda. So do we have anybody that wants to remove anything?
Why does everyone look right at Leo?
Why do you always look at me?
Councilman Zuber, what would you like to pull?
Bad boy.
I don't want to remove anything, but I would like to pull for discussion items 1.2 D and 1.2 F.
1.2D and 1.2F, okay. All right, so do we,
I'll make a motion to move.
so we have a motion on the floor to approve the agenda as amended. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second.
Go ahead,
We've
Leo.
got multiples.
Go ahead, Leo. Go ahead. You can, yeah.
There we go, perfect. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended?
So move.
Second.
So we've got a motion and we've got a second. Okay, Councilman Zuber, 1.2D.
We can take both of these together. I just wanted to make sure I understood what I was looking at. 1.2D
is the bill for the actual work for the stormwater outfall. And 1.2F isn't a bill, it's a contract. So we don't know whether that's going to be enough to cover everything or not at this point.
That's right. That's for engineering and permitting services, and the total contract amount was 86,500.
Okay, do we know how long it's going to take Siegfried to get all that done?
We just submitted the application, the permit application to the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. So we don't know a time frame from them yet on how long that's going to take.
So at the point that the permitting and all that stuff is done, we'll get a final amount that we pay them.
Correct.
Okay, that's all. And with that, I'll move to approve 1.2 D and F.
Got a motion and a second.
I don't have a
Yeah,
top
There we
line.
go.
There it is.
there
Okay.
it is. Oh, waiting on me. Okay. And with that, we will go ahead and move on to the proclamation. Councilmember Stusha?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor asked me if I wanted to make this presentation, and I said, absolutely, I would like so. I had some notes I was going to talk about later, but I guess I'll just incorporate them into this. So Andy, would you please come up here? So do we have a mic besides me?
You are the mic.
Oh, you can shake a little. Thank you. So let me tell you a little bit. Can everybody hear me? This on?
No.
Is it on now? Now? You want to get this on tape though?
You may have to have it over here.
Do I?
I may have to go stand over there. Doesn't appear to be there.
Lisa? Okay, now can you hear me? Can you get it on tape? So Andy, wow, it's been a long time. So just a little bit about that I know about Andy, and again, I have my chicken scratch here, so it wasn't made for the presentation to you, but I appreciate the mayor letting me do this. First of all, I've known Andy for probably at least 20 years. I sat on COG, I was chairman of COG, and the position that he held before he was the executive director was the assistant to Julia Green. And when it came up to put Andy in that position, it was overwhelmingly Andy needed to be in that position. And you've done a wonderful job for us. And one of the things I think it's important for people to know, we think of San Joaquin County, a little county in California, but when you travel, I've been all over the country with Andy. We've been to DC, we've been to Arizona, we've been places legislative, asking for money and also looking for legislation. And wherever you go, Andy's well known. In San Joaquin County, Transportation COG is well known and well respected throughout the entire country. Julia Green started it. You kept that tradition going for the many years you were in there. And so we ought to all be very happy of where we are because of you. You've been very instrumental. And if you remember when I introduced you to Monica Nino at my house, I said, people like you and hate you. They like you because you're improving the roads, but you're shutting them down till they're improved. But you're also the most powerful guy in the county at the time. I mean, we had all these elected people, but you had the purse strings. And so you respect that. So let me tell you a little bit about, let me just mention a few things if I can read some of this, just so you people know. I don't want to go through all the whereas. Andy's worked for the council of government for 41 years. So retirement is well deserved. But let me read a few things that you may not know. Mr. Chesley provided the city of Ripon invaluable assistance to fund and move forward the Jack Tone Road interchange, which allowed significant economic growth in Ripon and has contributed millions of dollars in tax fund, police, parks, maintenance, libraries, et cetera, throughout the city. Let me add on to that. So 3 times when I was on COG, I asked to get the debt relieved, where we didn't have to pay the debt back. And twice I was told no. The 3rd time was a charm. We owed $6 million to the county, and it wouldn't have happened without Andy's support. I don't know if he jumped up and down supporting it because it was relief of debt, but the city has $6 million more today had it not been for Andy pushing as the executive director at COG to get that taken care of. Were you the executive at that time? If you weren't, you certainly pushed it forward.
We paid back, yes.
Okay, good, thank you. Andy, you've helped us with a lot of things. It's within this. I don't want to read all the whereases. But because you were so instrumental in the county, I know how to get a hold of you, so I'm not going to say I'm going to miss you because I know where to get it. The only thing I'm concerned about is what you're going to find to do, because I know Leslie's not going to let you stay home. That I know for a fact. See, she's shaking her head. But anyway, Andy, thank you so much for everything you've done for Ripon. Thank you so much for everything you've done for the county and putting us on the map throughout the entire country. Congratulations. Want to say a few words? Where's the camera? Got to take a picture. Glenn, you want to take a picture? Please? Well, we got to document this.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I did bring my wife along, Leslie. She had talked to me that we need to get out more, relive our romance. I said, hey, just the place. So we are here tonight, and thanks for coming along, Leslie, on this. And I apologize for the bruise on the head. I was comparing notes with Kevin. Kevin hides his bruises from his job a lot better than I do. They show up here. Working for locally elected officials is not the easiest thing in the world. So, I go back a long time with Ripon, and we were talking about, I remember the old house, I think it was on 2nd Street down here, is where the city council used to meet. And Clarence Schmidt was the city manager at the time, a good man. I remember Mayor Ed Feitmeyer taking me out into the orchards to say, this is where we should put the Jack Tone Road interchange. And we got chased by a dog. But you, with Ed Feitmeyer, you went wherever wherever he asked you to go. Ripon is, I joke that Ripon is one of my 7 favorite cities. And really, though, Ripon is a special place in my heart regarding it. And back when we renewed the Measure K program, the council really designated a seat for me at each one of the city council meetings because they wanted to get as much as they could out of me from that renewal of the Measure K program. Ripon's been a great place to work with on this one, and I'm not going away. I'll still be here in San Joaquin County, but I really appreciate the people I've worked with here in the city of Ripon, and I appreciate the honor being granted me tonight. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, that is the end of the consent calendar. We will now move on to Resolution 2A. This resolution approves the City of Ripon Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. There have been no changes to this plan, so we will go ahead and entertain a motion on the floor.
I'll move to approve.
We've got a motion and we've got a second. Okay. We will now move on to Resolution 2B. This resolution adopts an increase in the cost of health and welfare benefits to be provided to non-represented employees and city council members in the calendar year 2021.
So moved.
So I think Mr. Warner.
I think Mr. Warner
Yeah.
has some.
Yeah,
Nope.
just real quick, this is the annual process we go to renew the health and welfare benefits for all city employees. For this year, these are done on a calendar year, and for calendar year 2021, as we talked about last time, there are no changes in the healthcare providers that we provide to our employees. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. One last thing I will add, that a few years ago, the increases in the premiums are being shared with the employees. So there is, the employees are participating in that this year with the increases that we've seen. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Turn it back over to the council. Does the council have any questions?
No, we already went over this, so I
Yep.
don't have any questions.
Okay, seeing no questions, do we have a motion on the floor? We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Wait, oh, I guess it's me. Okay, moving on to 2C, this resolution establishes the process in accordance with Proposition 218 to increase water, sewer, and garbage rates in accordance with the Water, Sewer, and Garbage Funds Rate Study Report. Mr. Warner, this has you written all over it. Oh, Ms. Quillisi.
Yes, if you want to put on that point. Nothing has changed from your recommendations from the last meeting. And here are the percent rate increases with the water at 2% all 5 years, sewer 4% all 5 years, and garbage 5% the first 3 years, and then 4% increase the last 2 years. The rates will still continue to be evaluated each year to see if they are needed to be implemented, and they will be implemented on February 1st of each of those years. The public hearing will be scheduled for, if there are no changes tonight, for January 12th at 6 p.m. And would need a majority protest of 50% plus one for the utility rates not to be implemented. Were there any other questions on the report? Yes.
No, I just have one comment because I want to make sure it's clear. We went through this before, so I've seen all the numbers, but I wanted to be clear. We're not making the decision to raise rates. We're making the decision to put it on the ballot for the public to make the decision, correct?
Yeah, the public just has to have for this Prop 218 process, because utility rates are already established in Ripon, they don't need to vote in the rates, they would need to protest the rates. So that's why they would need at least 50% of the public or property owners voting plus one against the rates. So
I just want to make it clear, we're not raising them today. They get to make the decision, not us.
Yes, they get to make the decision to protest them. And if they do not protest them, they will be implemented. However, again, every year we'll bring it back to council and we'll do an evaluation to see if the full rate increase is needed.
And I should correct, when I say they is me too, because I'm a voter.
Okay,
I have a couple questions.
Councilman Zuber, go for it.
They all reference the actual study. In figure 2.2, this is in the water rate section. That section says it's based on the assumption that we will add 40 houses a year to the city. And yet that table shows that the amount of water we're going to consume is going to decrease over that 5-year period.
Yes.
How does that work?
So what we do is we do a realistic how many homes in Ripon are typically being added, and that's the 40. And then the decrease in the usage, we're trying to do in simplistic terms, the worst case scenario. If we have a similar situation as we did a few years ago, we decreased 28%. If that happens again and we don't account for it, a small reduction every year, which we're accounting for a 3% reduction every year, which is very reasonable, and what other consultants use. So if we had that catastrophic 28% reduction, we would not be in a very good place financially. And so we use that kind of worst case scenario of estimate about 3% of water consumption decrease every year.
So then, assuming we have no drought, there could actually be an increase in water usage over the 5 years, and we would have to look at.
And that's why we bring it back every year to evaluate where we are and where our standing is. So if there was an increase, maybe we don't need the full 2% increase in rates. we may not need it at all, would be 0, or maybe we just need 1%.
Okay. Next one is, has to do with garbage, I think. It's table 3.1. It shows a deficit for 4 years. The first 4 years, income or expenses exceed income.
Yes,
How
so
is that covered?
let me show you. Water, garbage. So even though our expenses are exceeding our income, we still have a lot in the fund, the operating fund balance. So we're not having a deficit of funds, it's just our cash flow is decreased a little bit, but we're still above our target. Or we're at least, we get to the target at the end of the 5 years. So it's increasing, it's just those first few years. Oh, I think you're talking about sewer.
In other words, we're spending the money that we have accumulated and set aside for whatever.
No, we do still have transfers into our reserve and our capital repair and replacement fund. So if, let's say, our expenses are a lot greater than what we're already expecting, we could theoretically do less of a transfer into those reserve funds.
Okay.
But yeah, the fund balance is decreasing because we're doing those added transfers into those reserve funds.
Can I just make a comment? So that shows up on your treasury report every month, doesn't it, Lisa?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to use this one, but I don't remember which one it is. We had this discussion last month when we talked about this, the red and the black lines. One of these, I think, is garbage.
It was garbage.
Nope. There's one of them that they never touch.
It used to be garbage, and we adjusted that last meeting. It was 4% across the board, and to fix that, we got the 5% those first 3 years so that we would reach the target at the end of the 5 years.
So then, in theory, those transfers we authorize every year, at some point, our transfer will into the enterprise fund will equal what we want it to be, because that, I think it's garbage. We've been quite a bit short.
So the black line is our fund balance, the cash flow balance, and that's after the transfers. So if for whatever reason, maybe 1 year, our income is not as high, we would just do less of a transfer, which is the green in that graph there. We would do less of the transfer, which would increase our cash flow.
Well, my question is, let's assume we want $500,000 in the enterprise fund. For the last 4 years, it's been like closer to $250,000. And the idea was, if we want $500,000, we need to set the rate so that we'll eventually get there. What you're saying is, under this plan, we'll get there.
We will get there. As you could see, this past fiscal year, FY20, the graph, the green is quite a bit lower, which is our transfer into the reserve fund.
Okay.
And then this year, or sorry, in 2021 through 2025, we increased those transfers so that we would have more in the reserve fund.
Okay. Last one. I think it was last month, you presented a situation where over the course of the next, I don't remember, 2, 3, 4 years, we had to come up with $2 million to put these filters on a lot of the storm drain outlets. Where is the stormwater system? Which one of these includes that?
The capital R&R, which is the capital repair and replacement reserve fund, is where we are saving the money for that trash provisions, is what they're called.
It's in the sewer enterprise fund.
It's in the sewer.
Okay.
Yes, in the green bar in that graph right there.
All right.
And that's state mandated.
Yes, per our stormwater permit with the water board.
But Bunky, Leo had a good question. Can you go back to garbage real quick? Because that was a good question. I think the reason we dipped, didn't we have to go out and buy a garbage truck or something?
We do. We
So
do.
hopefully, I mean, if we may get another dip if we they don't last as long to our capital plan, right?
Yeah, we added a garbage truck, so that increased the transfer for the
Yeah.
replacement. But the other thing that happened is what you just said, additional regulatory requirements from the state have really hit garbage very hard and required more resources. So that's been some of the struggles too, and we've accounted for that over the next 5 years. But state mandates are increasing the expenses in these accounts.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else on the council have any questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion on the floor?
I'll move to adopt the resolution.
We have a motion and we have a second.
Stole it from me. You said it at the same time I took it.
Okay, we will now move on to item 3A, appeal of the Planning Commission's decision to the City Council. So it's been a little while since we've done anything like this. So, and as we don't have a full house, I'll go over the rules kind of real quick. So the way that this is going to play out is the staff will make a presentation to the council. The council will ask any questions that we have of staff going back and forth. Then we will open up the public hearing. We will allow the developer to make comments and make a presentation. So there is no time limit on that. Then we will allow anyone to speak who is in favor of the project. And then we'll move on to anybody who is not in favor of the project. So each person will be given 3 minutes to speak with a 30-second notice. So, and then we will give the developer a chance to address any of those concerns that have been brought forefront. We will then close the public discussion section and we will move on to the City Council for discussion. So let's see, if you have submitted a letter ahead of the meeting, those have been provided to the council and you don't need to read those in. And as seeing that there's less than 25 people in here, we don't really have to worry about any COVID restrictions or anything like that. So I get everything? Perfect. So, okay. So, and with that, we will go ahead and turn it over to city staff.
Thank you, Mr. As you know, here tonight, we are doing hearing an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision by the City Council. Basically for the gas station and convenience market located at 112 West River Road on the corner of River Road and North Ripon Road. Just a little history of the site. It's in the staff report for you there, but the site was originally annexed into the city of Ripon in the year 2000. It was part of the Chesapeake Development Project, which brought in about 225 acres of property at that time. And as part of that development, that annexation, development plans were approved. And specifically that corner, when it was brought in at that time, was zoned for 10.5 acres of what we call community commercial. Community commercial is kind of your larger commercial areas meant to serve a bigger part of the community. Save Mart Shopping Center, 10-acre site, that's a community commercial site. So that was kind of the size or same size of that property at that time. Additionally, with that annexation and the Chesapeake development out there, other community regional improvements were planned as part of that annexation, such as the development extension of River Road from North Ripon Road all the way to Jack Tone Road, and it was planned as a 6-lane regional expressway. Long-term plans for River Road is to extend that regional road westerly to connect with State Route 99 at a future planned interchange at some future point. Development and extension of Fulton Avenue was also part of that development. So where we brought a 4-lane facility from what was called the Wilma Overpass at that time right here, the Fulton Overpass now, all the way out to River Road, connecting those two major roadways. In March of 2016, JKB Living entered into a development agreement with the city in order to develop the entire originally zoned community commercial site into a mixed-use development project, 6 acres of high-density apartments with 4 acres of neighborhood commercial. As part of their development agreement with the city, Of Ripon, only a portion of the building permits would be issued for the high-density apartment complex. Roughly about 50%, maybe a little over 50% was going to be allocated until at least 50% of the neighborhood commercial development commenced on the commercial site. In November of that same year, 2016, a major site plan application was approved by the Ripon Planning Commission, approving the existing, what is there now, the existing FINA restaurant building and the adjacent strip center, with construction commencing shortly after the approval. Fast forward a bit, on July 20th of this year, the Ripon Planning Commission did receive a proposed gas station convenience market project for the remaining commercial site. At that meeting, the Planning Commission received testimony from the applicant and the public, however, did not take action on the proposed project. Therefore, the project was sent back to the Planning Commission for another public hearing and project determination. On September 21st was that additional hearing. The Ripon Planning Commission conducted the second public hearing on that project. And at the meeting, the Planning Commission received even more additional testimony for the project from the applicant and the representatives, and also received comments from over 100 local residents. We had 103 letters in opposition and 2 in favor of the project. There's a list in the staff report of kind of breaking down kind of what the gist of those letters covered. Several different categories there for you. I won't read through those at this point. Ultimately, the Planning Commission denied the project on a 4-1 vote, citing the inability to make one or more of the mandatory findings in the Ripon Municipal Code. Specifically, they cited the inability to make findings 2, 3, and 4, and were stated as the reasons for denying the project, which are listed here in the staff report. After that meeting on September 28th, the city of Ripon did receive a timely appeal from the applicant seeking reversal of the Planning Commission's denial on the River Road, North Ripon Road gas station project, which brings us here tonight where we're at. Part of that appeal process, it is the appellant's responsibility to clearly set forth the reasons why the appeal should be granted. JB Anderson Land Use Planning is representing the appellant here this evening and has submitted in writing why an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision should be granted, which was an attachment to the staff report. The appellant made 4 points in his appellant letter and also provided comments on each of the 6 findings that were part of the original site review plan. Staff did respond to all the comments we received from the appellant in the appeal letter. I won't go through all of those. We did respond to a lot of those. It's in your staff report. So there's some response to them, but I do want to touch on a few of them. It's kind of more specifically the findings that were used from the Planning Commission in denial of the project. So they cited findings 2, 3, and 4 as reasons to deny the project at the Planning Commission. Finding 2 is adequate utilities, roadway improvements, sanitation, water supply, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been provided, and the proposed improvements are properly related to existing and proposed roadways. The appellant actually commented on that, saying the project site will be served by the city of Ripon for water, sewer, and storm drainage services, which are already connected to the property. Development of the proposed project will be required to pay all the city of Ripon capital facility fees. These fees are intended to support the proposed project's impacts to the area, capital infrastructure needs, including roadway improvements. Capital facility fees collected from new development are placed in a fund controlled by the city council. These include funds collected for future transportation investments. The city council and not the project proponent have control over the timing of improvements to the regional transportation improvements, such as the intersection of River Road and North Ripon. Timing of these improvements are determined by the city, and delay of these improvements should not be a hindrance to new development. The response that the city provided in the staff report to that response area is, in fact, the development fees are collected from all new developments within the city of Ripon. These development fees do assist in funding master plan capital improvements, projects for transportation, water, wastewater, storm drainage, parks and rec, library, city hall, police station, etc. All the PFFP fees. A lot of the discussion by the Planning Commission and the public has been focused on the roundabout located at North Ripon Road and River Road. This roundabout was constructed in late 2006 as part of the Cornerstone Residential Development project, which is to the north of this site, north of River Road there. At that time, the developer was not able to obtain the necessary right-of-way to construct a full-size roundabout. That was intended for the intersection at that time, therefore, the smaller interim roundabout was constructed. The interim roundabout functioned at this location from 2006 to 2009 until the stop signs were installed. During that time, the police department recorded 11 traffic collisions with 13 injuries. Since the stop signs have been installed after 2009 there, in place over the last 10 years, the police department has recorded 15 traffic collisions with 3 injuries at that intersection. The city of Ripon's current master plans do not include a roundabout at this location, but rather a signal similar to the one that is installed at Fulton and River. In order to complete the ultimate intersection improvements, additional right-of-way would need to be required from adjacent private property owners, as well as property annexed in from San Joaquin County. The capital cost for the improvements at the Fulton intersection, just to give you some rough ideas of the costs on that, was $1,400,000, which included the paver intersection, curb gutter, sidewalk improvements, and the traffic signal. Does not include acquisition of any additional right-of-way. Improvements at the Fulton Avenue, like I said, did not include any of the right-of-way acquisition at all. We controlled all the right-of-way at that point. As with any project, the timing of improvements for such master plan facilities are dependent on several factors. First of all, the need or the timing of said improvements. Secondly, available funding for such improvements. Available right-of-way, specifically for transportation-related improvements, and other requirements as well. It's not unusual for necessary infrastructure improvements to delay the timing of developments. If the city of Ripon does not have the funding to support such needed improvements, the options are kind of limited. Wait for the improvements to be constructed by the city of Ripon. Once funding becomes available and the project is prioritized by the city council to be built out, or the development built out the necessary improvements to support their project, and enter into a reimbursement agreement with the city of Ripon to be reimbursed as funds become available when future development happens and we achieve funds in those categories. Finding 3, the site is physically suitable for the type of development and for intensity of development is one of the other findings. The proposed project site, this is from the appellant. The proposed project site is within the city of Ripon city limits and is zoned for a C1 neighborhood commercial uses. The land uses that compose the proposed project are all permitted uses within the C1 neighborhood commercial as stated in section table 16.20.1 of the City of Ripon Municipal Code. The property and surrounding areas was annexed into the city in the year 2000 as part of the larger Chesapeake subdivision, as we mentioned earlier. Annexation, the property area was zoned for a community commercial, C2 land uses. And in 2016, it was rezoned to the neighborhood commercial to support the development of the neighborhood commercial uses. The city council has designated that the project site is physically suitable for the development of commercial uses since it was annexed in 2000. The city's response to that is those are correct statements in regards to when the property was annexed, the zoning of it, the rezoning of the properties. Upon annexation into the city of Ripon in 2000, the Ripon Gardens 2 project site was entirely zoned 10 acres for commercial use. In 2016, the site was rezoned as part of that Ripon Gardens 2 project, the mixed use project, to be 6 acres of high density and 4 acres of commercial. So in fact, since its annexation into the city, commercial uses have always been planned for this area. This site sits directly adjacent to a 140-foot or 6-lane regional expressway and a planned 102 or 4-lane minor arterial, which is North Ripon Road. Both of them are expressways. There's some definitions in there for expressways. Expressways, they're designated as higher capacity, higher speed corridors. with the primary purpose of improving local and regional mobility. Some, but not all of the design features for these facilities include multi-lane facilities with center medians, provide limited direct access to those roadways, have minimum design speeds of 45 miles per hour, which River Road that's what the speed limit is out there now, and turn lanes at all the intersections. The minor arterial, which is North Ripon Road, they're designed to collect and distribute traffic from expressways and major arterials to streets of lower classification. So those are streets designed to move traffic a little higher speeds yet to get people to residential neighborhoods or commercial properties throughout the city. While these are planned transportation facilities in the area, which can certainly serve the anticipated land uses, they are not at this point completely built out. And then the last finding, issuance of a permit will not be significantly detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare, or be injurious to the property or improvements of adjacent properties. The appellant went on to say, as stated above, the proposed project suggested land uses are permitted. I won't go through all that there. However, they do state that the project proponent and planned operator of the proposed project agreed to provide and install one mesh or wireless access point in city security video camera, which is part of our security system here at city. We have 80 cameras around town at a location approved by the chief of police. In addition, they were going to, although they were not going to be open 24 hours, they were going to install a high quality camera system within their facility. So if the police department ever did need access to their videos, they would have access to those. Again, it's not being proposed as a 24-hour business. They'll be closed between the hours of 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. So that was their comments. City's response is they are correct. They did agree to the conditions of approval that were put on it with the Planning Commission to mitigate safety concerns to the fullest extent possible. The chief did request the project proponents to provide and install one city camera, mesh camera, and city security video camera. The chief did express via written correspondence, which was attached to the Planning Commission staff report and also the appeal staff report for the city council. Basically to the Planning Commission that while he did appreciate the project proponent's efforts by agreeing to incorporate the additional mitigation, in his opinion, this does not fully resolve or mitigate the traffic safety and possible increased crime with slower response time issues. The city council acting in its appellate capacity must determine based on all the evidence in the record whether the required findings can be made. So I won't go through the rest of the other findings since those were not cited. However, we do have some findings that would have to be made, which we'll put on the screen a little bit later here for the city council. And all the conditions of approval for the project are in the staff report this evening for you guys. And at this point, I'll turn it over to city council and see if you guys have any questions. I'd be happy to answer.
So we'll turn it over to the council. Does anybody on the council have any questions for Mr. Zadevar? No questions? Okay. So seeing, Mr. Euchre?
One question I would like to ask is, it seems like that, you know, we made a stipulation a few years back when we built out this project that we would build it out. And so I'm a little bit delusioned about that. Is it a gas station? Is it because it's a gas station on the corner, or is it because it's just any business on that corner?
So if you're referring to the condition in the development agreement where they had to build out, at least start the commercial before they can get all their permits for the higher density, that was a condition of approval of the development agreement. So they did start in that same year, they did come in and get approval of the Fina restaurant and the strip center that was out there, which did release the remaining permits so they can finish out the high density. The initial concerns with the development agreement at some point was that the higher density apartments would get built out and we would never see or would never have any commercial development come to fruition on those parcels. So it wasn't the stipulation that 100% of it had to be built out to release the permits. It was just stipulation they had to get started on at least 50% of the commercial development, which they've done.
Well, and my concern on that is the fact that I understand the concerns of people who are in the public, but the bottom line is it seemed like it seems like a very good project, and it seems like it's went very well. It has met with a lot of confrontation over the years, but I mean, and I guess maybe this should be asked of the chief. Is that like a danger factor because you got a gas station on the end of that corner, or whatever business you want to think about having out there? And is the roundabout, I understand the roundabout's a concern. The roundabout's been a concern of mine. I live not very far away from that area, and it's not been a good roundabout. I can remember about 8 years ago when a young 16-year-old girl came from the high school when it was talking about the roundabout and was trying to explain to us as the intelligent people that a roundabout don't have 4 stop signs on it, which has nothing probably to do with this aspect, but it brings that back to me.
And just to stress, you are acting tonight in an appellate capacity, which means that you're not bound by the decision of the Planning Commission any more than the Planning Commission was bound by the staff recommendation. If you remember in the history of this matter, staff recommended initially approval to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission voted to deny the project, and you're here tonight in appellate capacity to make your own decisions and to not be bound by those made by the Planning Commission. So it's entirely new and up for you to review as though it were a new project. So you make your own judgments about the compatibility and the ability to make the findings.
Thank you.
Okay. We will now open up the public discussion. We will now open up the public hearing section. So.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, John Anderson, 139 South Stockton Avenue, Ripon, California. I'm here representing the property owner, James Brenda, JKB Living, the developer of this property, and the individual who worked very hard with the city council back in 2015 and 2016, ultimately, to modify the existing general plan and zoning on this property to a mixed use, which allowed the construction of the Ripon Lux apartments that we see out there now, plus the development of the Terraza Commercial Center, and bringing in John Surla with his new restaurant, Fina. So Mr. Brenda, my client, has done a tremendous effort to adhere to all the standards, all the policies, all the commitments that have been made as part of those 2015 and 2016 discussions. And quite frankly, it was a lot of controversy at that time. In fact, all of the council members, including the mayor, were present when that was brought before you. It was a significant change. This project that we're talking about tonight is, in our opinion, the very last piece of this development puzzle that we've been working on since 2016. We've adhered to all the conditions, all the entitlement obligations, dedicated right-of-way, made improvements, paid fees. We've done everything possible that's required of us in order to move this project forward. What we've asked for is a site plan review for the last piece of the project, which was a gas station, which included 12 fueling stations, which, by the way, is exactly what we suggested as a possible use in the development agreement that we negotiated with City Council back in 2016, and exactly the same use that was evaluated by Katie Anderson, the traffic engineer, in concert with the city, who properly evaluated the traffic-related impacts, cumulative impacts that this project, including the gas station, would have in that area and at that one particular intersection of River Road and North Ripon. So We're a little bit taken back by the decision that the Planning Commission made. We know that there was a lot of discussion, a lot of opposition. Quite frankly, it's the same discussion, it's the same opposition that we had back in 2016. We had a tremendous hill to climb, so to speak, to actually build and implement what we suggested we would be doing. I think we've achieved that. We've heard a lot of positive feedback from the neighborhood with what you see out there. And again, this is the last part of that entire puzzle. Ken, thank you for your presentation. Did a good job walking through the history in this project and the deliberations that the Planning Commission went through and the findings that unfortunately they weren't able to make. And quite frankly, it related primarily to this incomplete intersection, this interim intersection that we've been dealing with since 2006 or prior. So, and at some point that intersection will be improved, similar to what happened with Fulton at River. It's not something that happens overnight, unfortunately. It's the same condition that we dealt with back in 2015 and 16 when this project was brought forward. In your staff reports, and I'm sorry, that there's a lot of information here in the staff report, and staff has done a great job, including, the Planning Commission's staff report, the minutes, the original traffic report, the letters of concern that have been expressed both to the Planning Commission and also to you, copy of our development agreement, et cetera, et cetera. If you look at page 205 of your staff report, in there's a table that talks about traffic generated from this project. And it's a report that's published by Ken Anderson on January 27th, 2016. And it evaluated exactly the project that we're suggesting tonight. So in essence, the environmental review that was done by council when they adopted and approved the general plan change and the rezone change and ultimately entered into a development agreement, which is a private agreement between the city and the developer, in this case, JKB Living, clearly articulated that that was an intended use on this site. So we're not proposing something new. We're not doing a bait and switch. We're simply trying to implement the vision that we started back in 2015 in 2020. We don't have control over how the city spends their dollars or transportation dollars. We know that there are certain warrants that have to be met in order for significant traffic improvements like what would be necessary at this intersection that need to be made. We know that based on the traffic study that Ken Anderson prepared, plus communication with the city, that the roundabout is probably not going to be the solution for this interchange or intersection. And instead, it's going to be a signalized intersection. At some point in the future, it's going to be a signalized intersection. On page 252 of your staff report is kind of an overall map of where this project site is in relationship to the city's projected growth area. And at some point, the properties that are to the north and to the east of this site will be developed. There are infrastructure issues that have not allowed those properties to develop. And at some point, they will develop. It's planned to be developed. You've suggested to San Joaquin County LAFCO, Local Agency Formation Commission, that would be the projected growth boundary based on what you believe your needs are to serve your community of Ripon, including commercial and residential components. So at some point, this project, this site that we're talking about, is not going to be on the perimeter of the city. It's going to be kind of in the center of the city. We're not necessarily in the center of the city, but it's going to be more surrounded with urban development. Currently, it is not, no question. Urban development line stops, along our eastern edge at North Ripon Road. No question, we understand that. But the future plans clearly articulate that growth and development will happen at some point in the future further to the east. On page 257 of your staff report, it talks about permitted uses in the C1 zone. What we're suggesting is a permitted use, service stations and gas stations. We're not asking for anything that's inconsistent with the existing GP or rezone. It's completely consistent. All utilities are there. The right-of-way has been dedicated to accommodate ultimate configuration of a signalized intersection here. We have very restricted access both to River Road and to North Ripon Road, all prescribed by traffic analysis that have been done and also under review by the city as well. We realize there's a lot of concern. We realize there's folks in the audience tonight that are living in close proximity to this, that have concerns about what's gone on in the past, what's going on, or what's being suggested now. But I'm here to tell you that we're simply trying to complete a project that we started back in 2015, got approval of in 2016. So in our mind, land use really isn't the issue. It's more about design, orientation of structure, massing, lighting, these types of impacts, to that area. I mean, what we're certainly not doing is another Save Mart. We made adjustments back in 2016 away from that to more of a mixed use type development, which is what we've been able to push forward and develop and deliver to the city of Ripon. And I think it's a project that, most folks, appreciate what's happened out there. And I know they're appreciative of the fact that James has been able to bring in and be able to retain a nice restaurant like Fina's in this community. So after having said that, we believe that the findings can be made. We believe there's substantial evidence in the record. We've represented what our feelings are as it relates to how those findings might be made in our response as an appeal to the Planning Commission decision. That's part of your administrative record tonight. And of course, we're here to answer any questions that you as the council or the mayor may have of us or of this project or of the process or of what we've presented tonight for you for consideration. We appreciate the position that you're in. We apologize that this has to come to you and couldn't have been resolved at the Planning Commission level. We did everything we could to try to resolve it at the Planning Commission level. But unfortunately, this matter needs to be brought back to the City Council for final deliberation. So after having said that, I think perhaps Mike Warda may have something to say on our behalf. James Brenda, the owner and the developer of the project's in the audience. You have our keen interest, and we're here to listen and to respond to questions or comments that you may have.
Any questions from the council? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Mike Warda, 2350 West Monte Vista, Turlock, California, the other nice town in the valley. Page 245 of your staff report has a preliminary environmental review, which asked about traffic, which asked about public safety concerns, and it indicated that there was none. There's a determination that was signed by your staff in July of 2020 that said that the proposed project could not have a significant effect on the environment and a negative declaration will be prepared. That's what your staff has said. Your staff has made recommendations on all 6 findings that need to happen. The problem here is that just like we had at the beginning in 2016, there's people that don't know what's going to happen. They're concerned, and I'm sure this isn't the first time it's happened, and they're good people, and they write letters and they're opposed to it, and they're opposed to a service station at this point. And this is a nice station. It meets all the findings in terms of the 6 findings. But the other thing that the council has that it didn't have in 2016 is it has the ability to see what James has built out there already. So you had more people opposing the project in 2016. Even then, it was still less than 1% of your population that opposed it. This is less people that are opposing it, but their concerns should be alleviated by what's been built out there, what the project looks like so far, what James has built. And again, when we entered into the development agreement, it was a contract with the city to say, we will go out and we will build 50% of this project before we finish the apartments. But the city's part of that contract was, we made findings and it's okay for you to go out and develop this as long as it's consistent with what our zoning is. And we're building what is consistent with what you're zoning. So we've lived up to our promise. We asked the city to live up to its promise. If there are design changes, that's really what we thought this process would be about, is how does the design look? How's it going to impact the neighborhood? How are people going to feel about the look? Nobody's talking about that because the design is nice. It's a nice project. Instead, we're talking about things that we talked about in 2016. We don't want this in our backyard. And so I think it's sort of unfair to James at this point to have to rehash that. But at the same time, there were people here that are now objecting to this that probably weren't here in 2016. And they need to hear from us that this project started out with objections, it's built out beautifully, and it will continue to finish off beautifully if the city approves this. Again, the 6 findings that are required to be made, there's been staff recommendations from what I can tell at the Planning Commission stage of this twice, because the staff report was submitted twice, and you have it here. And I don't think there's anything that you've heard today that certainly prevents you from making the findings. And I think there's plenty of evidence that suggests that the findings can be made. And again, the one thing that we thought this major site review was going to be about was, what's the design going to look like? Will this fit in with the rest of the really nice development that you have there? Is there going to be a problem with what we've done? And again, instead we're hearing, in some cases, a couple of opinions, but nothing that really goes to the merits of why we're here. And so I think you can make the findings. I think you should make the findings. We ask that you make the findings. And again, this isn't something that's just, we're coming in and saying, disregard what the community thinks. I mean, the community has had input on this project. In 2000, when you annexed it, you indicated you'd be able to provide services to it. In 2016, when we executed a development agreement, this service station was shown on one of the exhibits, actually shown as a picture on one of the exhibits. Again, it was proposed at that time. It could have been something different, but there's nothing that precludes a more intense traffic use at this site as long as it's consistent with your zoning. So we're available again to answer questions. James is, and reserve the right for rebuttal if we need to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now move on. Is there anyone in the public who is in favor of this project? Please step up to the podium, state your name and address. Seeing none, we will now move on to, is there anyone in the public who is opposed to this project? So please step up to, we will do this one at a time. So please step up to the podium, state your name and address, please. So, and just as a reminder, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning.
My name's Dustin Dyer. My address is 5250 Claremont Avenue in Stockton. I represent landowners in the community. What I've heard from the developers' representatives is we've got some pretty good feedback and mostly positive. It's directly contradicted by Mr. Zeidervart's statement that they've got 103 letters against this and 2 letters, one of them being the restaurant owner, for this. The main argument from the developer is, we got approvals in the past, so you should approve now. We had a deal, let's continue that deal. They're asking you to ignore your duty of deciding it on the merits and just rubber stamp what's been rubber stamped before on this. Another main argument was, at some point we're going to improve this. The city is going to improve this intersection, and it will be something that we can safely use this gas station. Well, just because it's going to be improved in the future doesn't mean it should be approved now. I liken it to the example of, I'm a first-time firearms owner, and I went to my wife when I bought my shotgun this year and said, hey, I want to buy a shotgun. And she said, great, when are you going to get the safe? I said, well, I will. I'll get the safe, I promise. And she said, get the safe, then you can get the gun. I have a 4-year-old. She wanted to make it safe before I got what I wanted on here. It's the same exact example here. Make the intersection safe and then decide to increase congestion, increase traffic, increase light pollution in the area. It's not a good idea to say, well, let's increase all that and then eventually we'll have the safety catch up to it. I mean, the examples of what collisions have happened, what deaths have happened there, in and of itself identifies the dangerous nature of the intersection. The master plan of making this a stoplight identifies the dangerous nature of the intersection. We can't decide that we're going to increase the danger and eventually the safety is going to catch up to that. That's just bad planning there. We have to protect the citizens before we provide them increased convenience here. I think it's a small price to pay to ask people to drive a short distance to get gas until this intersection's improved, excuse me. Right now, we are putting the cart before the horse. I think it's time to decide what's good for the citizens now. We're not asking for gas station to never be there. We're just asking for one not to be there right now.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. Any other members of the community? Oh, please go ahead and.
I'd like to give my time to the attorney to represent the people again. My time to
Mr. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can go further in light pollution, things like that, but I believe you guys have all received my letter as well.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes, we have. So just for future notice, Mr. Terpstra, just is that something that we are allowing?
We
for this?
traditionally, and this would be at the discretion of the chair, but we traditionally do not allow time sharing. And it's not really sounding like it's going to come together anyway. It sounds like Mr. Dyer has made the points that he needs to make.
Yeah. Okay.
On behalf of his client. And if the gentleman still wants to speak, he can speak on his own behalf.
Okay. Thank you.
Name's Lex Cornell. I live at 1712 Cornerstone Lane in Ripon, California. I'd like to first say that I was not aware that we could speak tonight because of the COVID. Most of the people I've been in communication with in the neighborhoods felt because of the COVID that they found out that they could have the 25 seats. But most of the people felt they weren't going to be able to speak, so they reacted by sending in the emails that were requested. I at no point was ever aware of the fact that we could speak openly here at this meeting. I'd like to just tell this group of people that I've been before you many times before, and many times we've had this argument about this roundabout. The elephant in the room is still there. It's an unsafe, very unsafe situation. If it's not repaired, fixed first, like the attorney has said, we're not putting the horse before the cart, we're putting the cart before the horse. Ripon, the city of Ripon has a duty to the safety of the public to have that intersection be safe for whatever they build on that property. That property is not conducive to the safety of the residents or to the people of the city. That out plan of having 6 lanes will only enhance the problem. That intersection must be fixed. Having a gas station there now is ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. These people could build something else on that property that would fit in to a restaurant group instead of having a Fina restaurant next to a service station. Thank you. I don't think I'd like to have dinner looking at gas pumps. No matter how you set it up, it's not a location to have a gas station and a convenience station. There's a problem with crime at service stations. Service stations are all over town. This is becoming gasoline alley in the city. We do not need any more service stations. Put in something like a dry cleaners, medical, dental offices, something that fits in, another restaurant. We opposed, as the people of that area, that service station from the get-go in 2016 when we had the meeting at the firehouse. That was the main thing we were against. We were against expanding more apartments out and loading up the traffic in that particular intersection then. So they developed a bunch of restaurants. which is fine, but we were always against that service station. Now they come back and say, we like the restaurants. Yeah, the restaurants are fine. We have no problems there. But we have a hell of a big problem with a damn gas station and a convenience station that is not appropriate for there. And way out in space there, the city's going to build the Fulton type intersection. We got to live with what's there now, with a service station sitting there. If you stand there at that street corner and watch the traffic get jammed up as 3 lanes go down to 1 lane and choke in through a roundabout that very few people realize is a stop about, and we have people cutting us off every time we go through there. There is a huge problem in that area.
Thank you,
And
Mr. Forno.
folks have to deal with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the community that would like to get up and speak who are opposed to this project? Yes, please.
Karen Vogel, 367 Cindy Drive, Chesapeake Landing. I was also here in 16. I've lived in Chesapeake since 2004. And I appreciate working with JKB Living when they developed the apartments and the concessions they made for our community. And yes, at that time it was brought to possible gas station. Down the line in the future, that may be a good solution for that point. But at this time, I believe it is not, as they've stated with the roadways, the dangers to our pedestrians, bicyclists, motorcycles, vehicles. It's going to, by their own report, it's going to almost double the traffic on River Road by putting a gas station convenience store in there. If we can't manage, the safety of that intersection at this point, what are you going to do when the traffic is doubled? And that was an estimate in 2016. That was years ago. We've already seen the difference in traffic along River Road and North Ripon Road. Through Ripon itself, the commuters are using it. I think it's just not the right timing. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public? So seeing none, we will go ahead and turn it back over to JKB if they would like to address any of the concerns that have been brought up.
Mayor, members of the council, John Anderson, JB Anderson Land Use Planning, tonight representing JKB and JKB Living, the developer of this project. This, again, is not a new project. It's been around for a while. The cumulative traffic-related impacts with this project, once finished, are fairly, I should say, if you look at the intersection as it is now versus what it would be in the future, and I'm talking about 2035, the impacts this project has is fairly minimal to that intersection. Cumulatively, it is an issue, which is why staff has suggested that there be a signalized intersection at some point. The project is and will be a city-funded project. That funding will come from development impact fees, from future development in the area, maybe some Measure K funds and others. It is on the list. Council has the ability to assign it as a priority. It's a condition that's been around since the 2000s. It was certainly a major issue of discussion we went through back in 2016. That issue and discussion obviously has not gone away. We're not suggesting that improvements don't need to happen at the intersection. Again, we've done everything within our development to accommodate ultimate configuration of that intersection as required by the city. Appreciate Mrs. Vogel's comments about what JKP has done for the community and what they've offered. Timing, unfortunately, at this point, our position is that we believe it's appropriate to develop this type of use on this property. And because it's owned and taxes are paid by my client, I mean, we believe the timing is appropriate for this type of use on this site. It's certainly consistent with the zoning, certainly consistent with the general plan, and certainly consistent with the prior commitments that we have made as a development team, and also what we've suggested as a possible use to the community of Ripon. So I don't have anything further to say. Are there any questions that you have of me?
Does the council have any questions?
Mike, you want to make?
Nope.
I think Mike Warden wants to make a comment as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, when John's talking about the cumulative impact of the project, he's talking about all the apartments that were built, the restaurants, the entire project. The addition of this service station in terms of its impact has been found by your staff to not be negligible, to not warrant any improvements in and of itself. So that's really the key here, is what does this gas station add to that entire intersection, to the entire community, to that project? And staff has found that it has no impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will go ahead and close the public hearing section. And we will now turn it back over to council. Councilmember Stusha.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, let me say, John and Mike, that was a great presentation. And Jim, you've done a great job out there with the project that you built, the commercial, the apartments, and all that looks wonderful. But I'm going to go back to 2016. This council approved that project with a 4-1 vote. I voted against it because I was concerned about traffic because of that intersection. You can have traffic studies, you can do all that stuff. I drive over there, I watch, and it hasn't definitely been worse than it was 4 years ago. But set that aside. I was concerned about traffic, and nothing's changed except for more traffic. And so my feeling is, even though you built a good project, even though you did a great presentation, you met the requirements, I'm still not convinced that I'm still not convinced about the traffic issue, and I turned it down once, and I'd be very inconsistent if I supported the project now.
Thank you, Councilman Stusha. Councilman Zuber.
For me, the issue is not about the project. The issue is about the safety of the project. That's one of the findings. The traffic study in more than one place. Well, first of all, the traffic study is about traffic volume and handling traffic. There are more than one statement in there that says for the safety part, there's going to have to be some changes made, given the uses that were put before the guy that did the study. The current layout has the potential for issues, and some of those are cited in the traffic study itself. And for me, until they're resolved, I'm not ready to put the safety of this community and the safety of its residents at risk. Because either they might want to use that station, or because they have to drive by it when somebody is using it at the same time.
Thank you, Councilman Zuber. Vice Mayor DeGraff.
I guess I have a question for, related to the comment you made, Leo. As far as traffic moving in and out of there right now, I mean, there's an entrance, and Ken, you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, the entrance that you would use coming off of River, turning south into it, just east of Phoenix, that entrance is already built. There's no additional driveway, right? And then the exit going out onto North Ripon, that exit's already there and usable. So all of the traffic flow where cars could go, as far as where people would drive, isn't going to change, right?
Correct. Yeah, all the driveway entrances are already put in. You're right.
And I guess then my next question based on that would be, has there been, and maybe it's a question for Chief, has there been safety issues as far as traffic related to those particular entrances and exits?
Bad question. Because there's nothing generating traffic on that corner right now. All the traffic is being generated by that strip mall. You go down there to McHenry and whatever that street is, where there's a gas station across from the casino. Try getting in and out of there.
I'm familiar with the intersection.
That intersection is engineered a whole lot better than the intersection we're talking about.
It also has a whole lot more traffic going through there than River
And
Road
it
does. too.
manages to make it. But you better know what you're doing when you go into that gas station, because if you think you're going to go west and go out that eastbound driveway, you got another thing coming. I've been there a couple times and about got whacked one time.
I would say it's the same for pulling out of the McDonald's and Save Mart's, the same concern.
I disagree. Rather strong.
One question I got is, if I can remember back to when all this came up, I mean, because I've been around here a long time, but didn't the city staff, and I guess my question is support this project? And do we, as a staff, do we still support it? When it came up for recommendation at the that meeting, it was staff supported that. Am I right or am I wrong what I'm saying here?
And Councilmember Euchre, just so we're clear, you're talking about when the project was proposed and brought before the Planning Commission. For the
Yeah,
first time.
recently. I know that before it was, because I was here. I don't go to every planning commission meeting, but if I recollect that the staff did support the project, but the planning commission rejected it. So I guess my question is where is staff on that now, or and why did we substantiate it, or why didn't we substantiate it? And does that make sense?
I'm not clear on the substantiating part, but what I would say is that the staff's recommendation was.
Staff recommendation was to pass the project.
To the commission was to
And
support
then
the project.
Right. So
the commission then took its action, as we know, to deny the project. And what the
Okay.
staff report for this appeal this says is you're acting tonight as in an appellate capacity.
Mike.
Oh, I'm trying to get to it. Here you go. You're acting tonight in an appellate capacity.
I'm not trying to put anybody in a hard place, but because
I know. Yeah, so what we've done is we've listed the various options that the council has. If you believe that all of the required findings can be made, they're on the board behind you, they're in the staff report, then you would vote to support the project and overturn the commission's denial. And then obviously, if you support the commission's denial because of your inability to make the findings, you would make that motion. So it's staff's position is essentially neutrality at this point.
Can I clarify? I think what you're getting at is, was it? Turn your mic off. Yeah. Was it staff's position in recommending to the planning commission to move forward with approval that all the conditions were met?
Yes.
I think that's what I said.
Yeah.
Which,
And that is currently
hey, I
still
get
staff's
it.
position.
It's a tough call. It's a dangerous area out there.
Yeah, we're really telling you what the commission did following staff's recommendation, which has not, there's not been a formal change in the recommendation of the commission, to the commission, if that's what you're asking.
Correct. Staff's position is still that, the findings would have there's nothing that's changed since the recommendation to Planning Commission that the findings would or could be met and that it should be approved or could be approved.
Could be approved is the answer. Yes.
Anybody else on the council have anything? So I completely agree with Councilmember Stucia. It's been a nice project. I think it's been mutually beneficial for both parties. I think that would be a safe understatement to say that, you know, it addressed a housing shortage that we had here in Ripon for high density units. It also, you know, hopefully was beneficial to the developer, and that's why they went forward with it. But as I sit here today, we have to make decisions based off of today, not necessarily, you know, 5, 10, 20 years from now. We don't know what they'll be. And as I think about that intersection and I think about the hazards that it creates, and until we can address that, you know, I'm reluctant to agree with the fact that we need a gas station there. I look at that intersection, I look at the traffic flows, I look at the safetiness of it. And right now, it's just, it's not something that I think I can get on board with. You know, if maybe 5, 10 years from now, I think it could very well be a different story as that area continues to get developed out. So that's my 2 cents on the matter. So the public section is closed, but yeah.
It is within your discretion as the chair to ask questions of anybody who spoke, or to allow someone who with a question to present that question. You can reopen for that limited purpose.
Yeah, that's fine. I have no problem with that. So if you want to go ahead and step up to the podium.
Two things. One is the additional improvements aren't triggered yet because the traffic counts haven't gotten to the point to trigger additional improvements. And second, we haven't seen, and you're pointing out to something, Mayor, that's important, is the safety issue. We're curious as to where in the record the council would be looking at to determine that it's unsafe, because there's one report that's indicated that there's been 15 accidents since the stop signs have been up and 3 injuries. And I'm not sure that we're just looking for an objective standard to say, okay, when you're saying it's a dangerous intersection, what are we looking at in the record so that we know how to address that? Because we don't want to wait 5 to 10 years to develop that last piece of that project when we have a development agreement with the city that said, you can develop this project. You contracted to allow us to develop it. If it's truly dangerous, we want to address that danger issue. So if you can guide us to what you're relying on, what the council will be relying on to say it's dangerous, that would be very helpful to us to move forward. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Councilman Zuber.
I think you're trying to lay a requirement on us that we don't have. Because what we're supposed to do is find that those findings are accurate. And if we can't, then we don't say that they can be found. Finding number 4 has to do with issuance of the permit will not be significantly detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. If we can't satisfy ourselves that that's true, you're done. And we don't have to sit here and spend 3 hours telling you why we think that.
Councilmember Stucia?
No,
Nothing else?
no, we're just trying to make sure they got those up.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, all right. And with that,
Just say in
Mr. Turpshaw.
response to the council's point, I respect council a great deal. He's obviously knows this area of law quite well. And I think he would agree with me as well that evidence in support of the findings or contrary to the findings can arise not only in the correspondence that's been delivered to the council tonight, not only in the traffic study, but also based in the council members' own life and experience living here in this community, driving its roads, navigating its highways, et cetera. So if that's where the evidence of concern for traffic safety arises, then that's entirely appropriate.
Thank you. Okay.
I would just say, I think
Yeah.
the question though was what's, some objective measurement that they can address it with to be able to develop something on that site at some point. Otherwise, we're gonna have an open lot sitting there for the next 10 years and that's not gonna benefit anyone.
So, yeah, motion at any time.
I'll make a motion that we uphold the decision of the planning commission.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And just for the purposes of the hearing and the record, the planning commission based its inability to make the required findings as to 3 of the required findings. And I know Councilmember Zuber's referenced finding number 4 tonight. Is that the finding, or do you want to go into the ones that the commission?
My motion will be that it be based on number 4. If somebody wants to amend something in, that's fine.
That was my motion in 2016, and that hasn't changed, so I'll remain with my second.
Can I make a comment before we vote on it?
Sure.
Or ask a question? What is the next step for the developer? Once we've rejected this, to do something with the site? Just curious.
Well, there's any number of options that they would have as a property owner. They have the right to file for a different project, a different use, rezone the property, initiate their own traffic study and their own traffic improvements in coordination with the city to that intersection to speed the process along. There's any number of different options that might be available to them, which they may find palatable, they may not. I mean, I certainly, just speaking from my own lack of experience as a developer, but I would find it rather daunting, to say the least. But it is what it is, and that's what the staff report indicates, that we can't push this, we can't change what's on the ground out there at this particular time. The other request I would have of the, as to the motion is that it would be clear that we are specifying with or without prejudice. And what that means is if you find, if you move for denial with prejudice, it means they can't bring the project back or a similar project back for 1 year. If you move to deny without prejudice, it gives them the right to come back in the door and begin working with staff on another iteration of this project or something similar to this project and continue working on it. So that's the clarification that staff would seek.
I don't mind that it be without prejudice. I can, I'm sensitive to what Daniel's driving at. I'd like to see something done, but it needs to be done and address some of the issues that have been raised. They want to start tomorrow, that's fine with me.
And I made the second, and I'll agree with that.
Okay. Okay. So then just for clarification, we have a motion on the floor to uphold the planning council's decision with the addition of Councilman Zuber's recommendation of item number 4 then, and then everything would be held without prejudice. Correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's essentially it, yes.
Okay. Okay, good. I just want to make sure everybody is on the same page here. So, okay. So with that, we have a motion on the floor. We have a motion and we have a second. Yeah, I'm waiting for it. Yeah, hold on 1 second. So, okay, there we go. Okay. Motion carries. So moving on to 4A. So this ordinance amends chapter 5.04, the business license generally of the Ripon Municipal Code to add requirements regarding national pollutant discharge elimination system, storm water permits, and requires business licenses for trucking, transportation, or hauling companies located in the city of Ripon. My goodness, that's a long sentence.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we waive the second reading and adopt the ordinance.
All right, perfect. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. So we have a motion and we have a second.
Get that in your wheel.
I'm waiting. So there we go.
I had to move quick.
There you go. All right, perfect. And we are now moving on to 5A, discussion item, financial audits. Ms. Rose.
That's
or
me,
Ms.
Mr.
Roos, sorry.
Mayor. So the audits for the city of Ripon and the money purchase thrift pension plan for the year ended June 30th, 2020 have been completed by our auditors, Price, Page and Company. These audits are completed to fulfill requirements placed on us by state agencies and our bonding agencies. We use an independent third-party auditor to ensure that we are in compliance with the laws and regulations. They review many of our transactions, our internal controls and other policies, and then form an opinion on the financial statements. The City of Ripon audit is a combination of all of the finances of the city. As noted in the audit letter, there have been no significant audit findings, no difficulties encountered between the auditors and staff, and no disagreements between management and the auditors. I've also provided a staff report in the city council packet that gives a financial synopsis of the fiscal year ended June 30, 2020 in terms, charts, and reports that you're used to seeing to help link the financial information you received during the year to these audited financial statements. No action is required this evening. We will bring back resolutions to accept these audits on the consent calendar of the December meeting. We do have our auditor from Price Page on Zoom if you guys have any questions specifically for him, Anthony Gonzalez, and I am also happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Does the council have any questions?
I have comments.
Councilmember Stucia.
So one, like always, good audit. Congratulations. I went through all of it, along with the 300 pages of the last project we just looked at. Everything turned out fine. They had one recommendation that you fixed, which was the procurement thing we fixed to go. Secondly, it's 6 months old. It almost doesn't matter now because we've had financial statements since then. But thank you for your job auditing the statements. Appreciate it. And your previous recommendation this time. So seems like we're doing a pretty good job. Would you admit or agree to that, Mr. CPA?
Yeah, absolutely. We certainly appreciate the city's efforts in putting together that procurement policy. It's definitely no small task, considering all of the different federal and state requirements.
Thank you.
Unlike Mr. Rasucia, I haven't started reading it yet. But should I have questions between now and next month, I will make sure and share them with the city clerk.
I have a guarantee he will have questions.
The consent calendar all over again. Okay. Vice Mayor DeGraff, you good?
I'm good.
Councilman Euchre?
Wait about 3 or 4 weeks, we'll have another CPA on the council, so we might have
Oh,
to relook.
lucky
at it.
you guys. Lucky you. So,
Fun.
And seeing none, we will go ahead and, does anybody have a motion on the floor?
We don't have to.
Would anybody like to put a motion on the floor?
No action.
Oh, it's discussion item. Never mind. You guys got me in a,
It'll
in a
be
routine.
brought back in December for, in the form of a resolution.
Thank you very much. You know what? You know what? After this, Daniel can take over from now on. Yeah. I know, seriously. Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a little bit, a little bit. I should have went with the Grizzly Adams look like Daniel has. All right, we will now.
Next month I'll wear a sweater.
Okay, we will now move on to department head reports. We are going to start over here. Miss Quillisi, you're up first.
Nothing further.
I want to make sure I didn't forget about you. That's why.
I remind you, don't worry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. She's hiding.
Yeah, I don't have anything to report.
Oh, Mr. Peace.
The only thing I have to report is just that the water usage in October was down 10% from our baseline year in 2014. So.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zaid. Oh, Chief, you're up.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, honorable city council members of the public. 2 quick announcements. On November 18th at 1 p.m. in the city council chambers, we'll be swearing in 2 new officers, Ian Hoke and Gabriel Calvo, who are just recently actually going to be graduating the police academy. So they'll be sworn in. It's going to be closed to the public because of occupancy restrictions, but they will have family members and police department personnel present. That night on November 18th at 7 p.m., we will have our area of responsibility number 4, which is basically the downtown area. will have their meeting in the EOC. There will be limited attendance, so if you want to make sure you get in, please show up early. That'll be at 7 p.m. Traditionally, we have anywhere from 6 to 12 people attend. The capacity for the EOC is 8. So we hope members of the public will attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, I have a question for you. For the swearing in, are we invited or do we have to come to the back?
Once we have a count of family members, we'll notify the council. But we want to make sure, because their academy graduation is not going to be held in traditional form, their family members aren't even able to attend that. So we're expecting most of them are going to be attending the swearing in place of the graduation ceremony from the academy. So it may be very limited capacity.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe Dan can Zoom it for you.
Mr. Zeidevart.
You can listen to the wall, man.
Yes, thank you. Couple items. So Monday night, we do have a planning commission meeting, just one minor item on that for a home occupation requesting people to come to the home.
It'll be your guys'.
We had a project that was sliding from this meeting in November to December. It was the battery energy storage project that was being proposed. So they are pushing out a little bit. Won't be heard till our December meeting. Secondly, next week on Wednesday at 4 p.m., we will be having a workshop, a public workshop here in the council chambers for the downtown master circulation plan. If you guys recall, some time back, our consultant went through somewhat of a plan with you guys, and we are going to be going through that with the downtown businesses and property owners, getting input from them. At some point, we'll bring back to the city council. So if you'd like to come, we will be having here at 4 o'clock in the council chambers on Wednesday.
That's the 18th.
Yes.
Can you send an email out to
Yeah,
us to
I can
remind
send
us so we can get it on our calendar if you don't mind?
Sure.
Thanks, Ken.
And then one last item. I don't know if this guy's going to bolt out of here next week as soon as he's trading spaces with Daniel here, but
I'm wearing shorts.
I don't
next
want to
week,
miss
so-
my opportunity here. I do want to thank you, Jake, for being on the council, and it's been a pleasure working for you guys and working for you. I do appreciate all your, I guess, experience and advice and on kind of pushing the economic development ball forward, and we're seeing some of the fruits of that labor here in Ripon, so they should be proud, and you've done a great job.
He's going to come back next month. He's going to be here next month.
Yeah, but he'll bolt out as soon as he does.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand so I can give him the boot next month as well.
Mr. Terpstra.
Nothing to report other than to congratulate our two incumbents on what appears to be a re-election victory, and echo the sentiments for Councilmember Parks, and look forward to welcoming a new member to the council in our next meeting. Ripon, a place where you can have an election and nobody gets hurt. Pretty nice.
You don't have to board up windows either.
Yeah.
Yeah. City
They
Administrator
haven't been
Warner.
certified yet.
Yeah.
I just have a quick update to the city council on the general fund budget. If you could bring that up and
Quick.
first sign.
Here we go. There's always someone that's got to spoil the thing.
So this is a summary through the first 3 months of the fiscal year through September. What I have on here is a very similar format that we've had in other presentations. The top light blue line that you see going across the graph is the general fund balance throughout the year, and that corresponds to the numbers on the right side of the graph. And that is, again, the numbers from last fiscal year. The dotted line on that, the blue line below that, that is what I had budgeted, which projected approximately a $600,000 or $650,000 deficit for the current fiscal year. The dark blue line to the left that you can see that goes through September, that's where we're actually at right now. So you can see we're just above where I projected in the current budget. When the council did approve that budget, it was an interim budget with the thought of getting a few months of data, revenue and expense data for the fiscal year. And I was going to update that budget and bring it back to council towards the end of this year, early next year. I'm on track to do that right now. I got most of it done. I'm just waiting on the November sales tax numbers that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And I'll be able to present that to the city council. Where we're at right now, or at least through September, is we're about $325,000 worse off than we were last fiscal year. Our revenue is down about $350,000. That's about 15% where we were last year. And our expenses are also down about $25,000. So we're very close to where we were in expenses, but really revenue being down about 15% is the biggest impact to that. This slide is the same slide I think I've shown last month. There's two revenue sources that are largely impacted by COVID. It's the sales tax revenue and recreation revenue. So what this slide shows here is we do get sales tax money every month from the state, but there's true ups that happen once a quarter. So the rectangle over the months of, I apologize, my eyes are not very good anymore, but August, November, and I can't read those last two. February, May. That's when the true ups happen. So that's when we will really see what is happening with sales tax. As you can see, for the first 4 months of the fiscal year, and this does go through October. I did have those numbers, so I put them in here. But you can see the month where we had the true up, there's a significant decline in sales tax revenue, whereas those other months are just calculated payments that we get that are very close to what we got the previous fiscal year. I do show the green line is where we were last fiscal year, where we ended up about $3.5 million of sales tax. The line below that, I think, is purple or blue. That is where we currently are at. So we are about $220,000 less right now than where we were last fiscal year.
Kevin, so when you look at the true ups, what normally is that amount? It doesn't have to be exact, it's just a ballpark.
Normally, what you could see from the previous fiscal year, like last year, we were getting an additional amount of revenue during the true ups. Obviously, right now it's much less. We're seeing a much lower amount.
The state doesn't screw it up like they did the first quarter.
Right. We have gotten misapplications that are also making this more confusing. And but you know, there was a misapplication from Flying J's that we've already paid back, and there was a misapplication with Costco from down south. So really, if you look at COVID, and I did it very simply, I took out the misapplications that have affected us so far in that $220,000. If you take the rest of that, and it's not entirely true, but if you take the rest of that and put it towards COVID, it's only about $70,000 where our sales tax has been impacted by COVID. So definitely not as bad as it was initially when I was putting together the general fund budget.
So then when you look at it and you kind of look at your overall planning and kind of how you've run the office, how much of an account do you have to take into the fact that there is going to be a true up at some point in time like this? Does it make a significant impact when you are going through creating the budget, like to where you're always hesitant and gun shy?
Yeah, so this is how I was kind of summarizing everything. What I do when I project is I look at the actual, every business that we get and what the numbers are, and I project from that. So I don't necessarily use the true ups. I use the actual revenue that's being submitted by each business.
Okay. All right, good. So I just wanted to make sure when we go through and we're doing all the planning stuff, we're using a data set that's accurate so we can make accurate projections.
Yeah, I'm using the real data. This is just kind of a summary of all the different data that, and as we get the revenue.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Next slide.
So you know what you're doing.
Try to. So on the sales tax side, I think I was very pessimistic at the start of COVID when I did the last budget. Recreation side, I think this goes back to May. And I was a little bit more positive, thinking we were kind of coming out of COVID. recreation would be coming back in some manner. I think at that point, the state was talking about youth sports and what that was going to look like as we emerge from COVID. None of that has happened. And this is probably one of the funds that we're seeing the largest decline in revenue. Last fiscal year, I think we saw on the order of $360,000 of general fund revenue from the recreation program. So that includes all our, soccer, softball, the programs that we put on, but it also includes the revenue from the leasing or rental of Midland Sports Park, community center, et cetera. All kind of goes into the revenue. So where we're at this year is, you can see the purple line on the bottom is obviously substantially lower. We're about, compared to last year, we're about $169,000 lower than we were at this point last year. Again, this goes through October, so I did have that data and I did put it in here. But obviously substantial change in projections related to recreation revenue. So with that, that's the update I wanted to provide to the council. I think next month, I know Lisa and her staff are working very hard to try to get all of the November financials put together so I could share that with the city council. So that's the hope.
So I just have one comment, if you're done, is, hopefully under the new leadership of a new mayor, we can turn this thing around.
Yeah, and with that, I do want to. With that, I do want to congratulate the Councilmember Zuber and Councilmember DeGraff on the re-election. And Jake, you're going to be missed. Really have enjoyed working with you and appreciated a lot of the conversations we've had, the input you've had, and you will be missed.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Zuber. What?
If you're still here.
If
look,
you're-
ain't
yeah.
done yet. That's what's his name? The guy that's.
I'm here next month regardless of how it turns out.
Exactly.
He's here. next month.
Exactly.
Councilmember Stusha.
Sure, thank you. So a couple things. Yeah, congratulations to Leo, Dan, and Tim. Wasn't hard fought, but I'm pleased you all got reelected. Jake, it's been fun working with you. It really has. It's been funny at times, but it's been fun. Appreciate all your input and the things that you do. I want to thank James personally and publicly. We had an issue down at the recycling center. You probably ended up hearing about it. I saved a phone call to you. I was down there when we had an issue with it. So she was getting ready to call you. I said, well, let me make a call because you don't have to bother Leo. And you sent somebody out there right away and got it taken care of. I appreciate that because there was some concern about whether, people were lining up, growling about not being able to get in. And so I said, bring it all in. I told them, let them bring it all in and I'll help you load the, whatever you call that thing. So I helped them load all the stuff that was dumped off. So no,
That was your fault.
no, I helped load the, whatever you call it.
You like how he phrases that? It wasn't his fault for the backup. He helped load it.
No, it showed up when I was there. And then what's really interesting is, so I've been, since I kind of retired, I've been walking every day and I walk between 5 and 6 miles to take different routes. And I tell you, this town is beautiful when you're driving it, but when you walk it, it's just absolutely phenomenal. You see things you don't even see when you're driving. It's just, I take a different route every day to see what's on. And I tell you, it's just absolutely gorgeous, beautiful town. And also, lastly, thank you to all your veterans in the audience, Chief, and whoever else is in the military. I appreciate your service. Tomorrow's Veterans Day, Dean. So thank you for your service and all the veterans out there, and enjoy your day.
Is it my turn?
Yep. Councilman Euchre.
The other day or yesterday, I was listening to a government official, maybe not yet a government official, but tomorrow is a Veterans Day, not Memorial Day. Tomorrow is a day that you honor veterans, period. Memorial Day is a day that you honor the people that gave their ultimate sacrifice, which means that they died serving their country. And there's a big, big difference between that. And to me, it's almost appalling or amazing that people that are in public view don't know the difference. Obviously, I didn't die. I served chief served. And then I'm going to put a good friend of mine right there, Dave Haggerty. I want you to stand up and sing with the rest of the people, happy birthday to me. No. You can't. What?
You've heard me sing, that's why you're saying.
Today's your birthday?
Not quite yet, but I won't be back until it was there. And I'm going to be gone. I'm taking a week off. I'm taking a week off. I won't be back.
Take two.
Well, happy birthday.
Happy
But
birthday,
anyway,
Dean.
oh yeah, and also seriously, thank you for your service. Congratulations for both of my respectable councilmen that have done a great job and will ongoingly do a great job. And Tim Wheeler, wherever he's at.
He had a 10-day trip planned long before this. He'll be here next month.
I just don't know if I like the fact that he's my CPA and he's sitting now on the council with me. He could, he knows things about me.
We all know things about you.
Dean, that was too easy. That was too easy. That was too easy.
Your money issues are probably at least a good word.
Vice Mayor DeGraff.
I appreciate the kind words. Jake, Mr. Mayor, soon to be Mr. Gone. I don't know where you're going, but it's been a pleasure. Yes. Yeah, as everybody said, Veterans Day tomorrow. So to all the veterans, thank you for your service. Appreciate it. To the members of the public who are here or listening online tonight, appreciate you being here. Thank you as always. And with that, looking forward to next month.
And with that, I'd just like to echo everybody's sentiments for Veterans Day. It is something that we do need to take more recognition of, and we need to look at people who serve in the our military branches and kind of follow their lead on conduct and how to behave themselves. And then just on a final note, the last 8 years have been fantastic. It's been great to work with city staff. When I first got started, they really helped kind of guide me in the process of kind of figuring out what was what and where the bathrooms were and just kind of how the city runs and how the city functions. And the council has been fantastic over my 8 years. We've had a lot of lively discussions, lots of 5-0 votes, lots of 3-2 votes, but nobody ever really takes things too hard, because on the very next issue, you may find alignment and nobody looks at anybody else with any personal animus if they vote against them on a specific issue. And it really is something to be said for that type of camaraderie. And in the age of social media and Twitter, that type of comedy among the body politic is really missing. The ability to look at your neighbor with decency and recognize that they are coming from a good place, even if they don't agree with you. And I think this council has been a fantastic example of that. How you can agree, how you can disagree, how you can do so civilly, how you can have a lively debate and discussion. And at the end of the day, everybody is really just trying to do their best for the town. Everybody is trying to make sure that this town is going to be the jewel of the valley for not just today, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And so I'm extremely proud to have been a small part of that history and a small part of, help crafting the future of Ripon. So thank you very much. And with that, we'll go ahead and end the Ripon City Council meeting for November 10th.